Hello, good evening. It's Wednesday, Corporate Wednesday, and welcome to PM Express. My name is Stephen Anti. As always, now, water, they say, is life, and access and distribution of potable drinking water is essential to the survival of many. Now, Ghana faces a number of challenges, including intermittent supply, high water losses, and low water pressure. According to estimates, only 1/4 of the residents in Accra receive a continuous supply of water, whereas approximately 30% are provided for 12 hours each day, 5 days a week. Another 35% are supplied for 2 days each week. The remaining 10%, who mainly live on the outskirts of the capital, are completely without access to pipe-borne water. The situation is about to get worse as the Ghana Water Company Limited has announced that water in the Accra-Tema areas would be rationed due to faulty filters at its treatment plant in Weija. This is just a chip of the bigger block in relation to urban water supply. Some rural folks have given up on the hope of enjoying potable drinking water anytime soon. Are these problems as a result of obsolete machines and technology? Or has it got to do with inadequate funds, considering the demand for increased tariffs? Are we really paying realistic bills for water supply? Are you even receiving water regularly? Or maybe it's about incompetent management, or rather mismanagement in our water sector. These are questions that we would like to explore tonight on PM Express. The Ghana Water Company Limited, GWC, is responsible for providing and distributing as well as conserving water for domestic, public and industrial purposes in 82 urban systems in localities with more than 5,000 inhabitants. A little bit of statistics about the Ghana Water. How well have they carried out that mandate, and what exactly are the regulators doing about the situation with consumers' dissatisfaction with water supply? You can join us by text 1760 or post your Facebook comments on our Facebook or facebook.com/Joy News on TV. If you are on Twitter, you can send us a tweet. Our handle is Joy News on TV. Joy News on TV. My name is Stephen Anti. Tonight I have with me in the studio Stanley Mate, who is Communications Manager of the Ghana Water Company Limited. We got in touch with Nanaya Jantua, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. She's expected to join us. She has confirmed that she will join us. So when she is able to make it, we will chat with her as well. So, Mr. Mate, it's great to have you. I haven't met you personally before, although I've spoken to you several times. Yes. It's great to have you here. Water, water, water. Everybody needs water. Are we receiving enough water in terms of, is the Ghana Water Company, does it have the capacity to produce enough water for everyone to start with?
Yeah, thank you very much. When we talk about capacity, we currently do not have the capacity to produce enough, and that is why there's a shortfall, and that's why there's a difference or deficit between demand and supply. Fortunately for us, Ghana is endowed with natural resources, enough raw water for us to produce. Unfortunately, our treatment plants are such that we are unable to produce to meet the demand. Now, we have 3 sources for supplying water. We have 2 treatment plants, that's the Weija and the Kwon treatment plants. And then we have some mechanized boreholes dotted around the metropolis, especially in Accra and even throughout the country. But in Accra, we have these 3 sources. And in your intro, you said that we have 82 systems throughout the country. So yeah, that's the statistics for the country and for Accra. These 3 sources in Accra are able to give us approximately 100 million gallons of water daily. And our survey indicates that demand for water in Accra Tema metropolitan area is around 160 million gallons of water daily. So there's a deficit of about some 60 million. Yeah. And the treatment plant is such that I'll use the analogy of a cooking pot, that it has a maximum content or volume that it can take at a time. So the treatment plant is such that in a day it's able to take some maximum. Beyond that, it's impossible. So that is the situation. But I'm sure as time goes on, we'll talk about projects ahead to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I mean, the situation you've just explained to us, I mean, the deficit. And then when we look at how much comes in and how much is supposed to be distributed to Accra and the rest of the country, how come that there are some areas which don't have water at all? And there are some areas where they have enough water and some go waste. Sometimes pipes are burst into the gutters and they flow for days on end.
Yes, so is the scenario, exactly so. Now, those who have enough water have enough volumes because of proximity to the source. Now, if you look at Dansoman area where they get water 24/7, if you look at areas around Ashama, Tema, where they have enough water throughout the week, 24/7.
But they old areas like Osu, Laboni, cantonments,
yes, I'll explain.
They have water also.
Yes, I'll explain. They have water, but not as adequate as those around Dansoman and Tema. The Tema area is close to our Tema booster station and close to the Bone treatment plant. So their proximity to the treatment plant makes it possible for them to get water throughout the week. So is Dansoman. Now our network is also such that although we are rationing, we are unable to isolate them because of their location. So they are fortunate and they get it throughout the week.
Why are you unable to isolate
that's
consumers in the catchment area, which you control, really?
Our distribution network is interconnected. So their location is such that no matter how you try to isolate them, you get the water maybe going around through some other lines and they'll still get.
They still have water.
Yes. So they are just fortunate. And areas which do not get at all are areas that live or are at the periphery of this thing.
Like Adenta?
Like Adenta.
Like Medina? Like Achimota?
Yes. And other areas like Teshi are also deprived because they lie at the end of the source. Okay. For instance, if you look at Teshi, Teshi lies at the end of the distribution mains from Bong treatment plant and also from the Weja treatment plant. So by the time water gets to Teshi, the pressure is so low that very few people get, and many do not get at all.
So does this not really support the need now for decentralization of the distribution, so that you don't get to put people at the end of a certain source where by the time water gets to them, pressure is so low they can't get it?
It is some factors that we are considering, but the fact is our current network or the existing network wouldn't support that.
So it means that if we are thinking as a nation about decentralization to improve water distribution, we have to have new systems entirely.
Instead of decentralization, we only need to invest more so that we have more water into the system, and then everybody will get, and gradually we are getting there.
So the problem is an investment problem?
It's an investment problem.
Oh, so
it is an investment problem. For instance, the late president sourced some funds from China, and now we are putting up a new treatment plant at our Bong treatment plant. Now, when that is completed in June 2014, it means you are going to double the capacity of Bong, which will increase coverage in Accra from 60-65% to about 90-95%. When that is done, most areas in Accra are going to receive water 24/7. Now, areas that will be around, that will be within the 5% left, will be areas where we do not have distribution mains at all. So the situation is going to ease seriously, and there are more interventions. For instance, we have one treatment plant at Kwenyako in the central region, which is underutilized. Now we have joined Kwenyako to Kaswa and we are putting that treatment plant.
When you say
capacity.
underutilized, exactly what do you mean? I mean, whose responsibility is it to
Now,
ensure that
the capacity for that treatment plant is around 50 million gallons a day, and the coverage jurisdiction for that treatment plant is such that they only consume just about 7 million gallons of water.
What happens to the rest then?
So that's why I'm saying that it's underutilized. So we pump for some time and we'll have to stop. But now we have interconnected the central region to, or that treatment plant to Kasoa, so that we are putting that treatment plant at full capacity so that the excess water will be sent to Kasoa. Now there's also a treatment plant being built in Nsawam, and we're going to get more water from Nsawam towards Pokuase, Imamasaman area, Dometaifa, that area, so to take care of that area. And then we have this new treatment plant that is going to, that we'll, from Pong, instead of going to Tema, we are laying pipes through Dodowa, Adenta to our Tema booster station. So it will also take care of areas along Dodowa, Frafraha, Adenta, Shalebutwe,
what about Botiano, old Botiano, Wager?
We have one treatment plant we call the Bamak treatment plant in Wager, which serves Botiano and parts of Kasoa. So when all these interventions are completed,
a water supply to that part of the city is also problematic.
Yes, it is, but because part of Botiano is
very close to Wager. So.
Yes, but they are on a hill. Most areas of Botiano are on a hill, so sometimes it's a bit difficult trying to gather enough pressure to get to them. But it's the same treatment plant that serves part of Kasoa, Amanfrom, and all that. So things are not too bad currently, but we are hoping that in the very near future, when all these projects are completed, the situation should normalize. There's also plans to build a desalination plant in Teshi. So when all these interventions are completed in the very near future, you
very near. How very near future? These sound very nice and creamy ideas, but we're not very sure whether they will translate into solving the problem in the short term. Let's say 1, 2, 3 years.
It's not like the plans that I'm talking about are on paper. They are not on paper. They are on the ground. Okay, so I'm saying that the treatment plant at Kwan will be completed in June 2014. Okay, so construction the last time I visited there was about 3 weeks ago, and they were around 45%. And they are hoping that by 2014 the job should be completed. Now the Nsawam project, I would say, is around 20–30% complete, and we need to give ourselves a bit of time. But even when this Kwan project is completed, coverage will increase to around 90–95%. And it means that most areas in Accra are going to get water 24/7. And if you are able to build pressures very well, then it means that even coverage will be better.
When you say build pressures, how do you build pressures? I mean, we want to understand the technicalities of bringing water to our homes.
Now, when we are producing constantly and consistently,
without power
failures and without any technical hitches, it means the water will go into all areas continuously. Now, if you've been able to fill all your reservoirs, the taps in your home will be closed. Okay, it means that we'll still have more water in the system to continue to your neighbor and to your neighbor and to your neighbor like that. So if it is continuous forever, it means that to get to a point where everybody's receptacles will be filled, and you don't need to
turn on the tap
and all that. So pressure will be enough. So yes, pressure builds up.
I see. So let's talk about the defects of the filters, which is the main thing on the agenda now, because it's because of that you're thinking about rationing water. How did you detect these faults?
Yeah, I hope we have pictures of how the filters look like. Today, your reporters were at Wager and they took some pictures, but I think they don't have it now.
Yeah, we can't pull them out now.
Yeah. Now, doing our routine checkups, and I must say that if it hasn't been the fact that we have a very good maintenance culture, most of our equipment will be down, because most of the equipment we're using now are quite old.
Obsolete.
Obsolete.
Out of vogue. So how do you get replaceable parts?
So we try to maintain them effectively so that we'll still have them running. Okay, so it is during our routine checks our routine maintenance program that we realized that there is serious defects, structural defects with the filters. And in order not to compromise on the quality of water that we produce, we've had to isolate these filters because we have maintained some standards and we wouldn't want to compromise on it at all. So we had to isolate them to the detriment of consumers.
So
I'm sure consumers will prefer good drinking quality water
than continuing to get rubbish water. Really. Now, my point is that you've announced rationing, but the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission wants you to spell out your plans, otherwise you will be sanctioned. So maybe you can begin by explaining to us what plans you have for the rationing and whether you really genuinely think that rationing is the solution, really.
Yeah, Steve, you know, any good management team will never roll up anything of the sort without having a plan. So we have had a crisis management team which met and decided on all these, including the press release that we sent out. So we have plans for all these ones, and with the plans for rationing, we are losing, let's say, around, or there is a shortfall of about 20% in production, which translates into about some 10 million gallons of water. So
in addition to the 16 million deficit.
Yes, so we knew it was going to compound the situation. Now, as experts in the field, we sat down, we decided that what is the next line of action. Prior to that, a week before, we had some, a lot of complaints from the public that there wasn't water. So the immediate thing was, let's isolate certain areas where they're getting water 24/7 so that we can help the distressed areas whilst we look at other measures in order to stabilize the situation. So we had looked at all those things, but it was important that we let the general public know what has happened, what we are doing, and where we intend to get to in the very near future. So that was why we had issued that. So the rationing program, as we have drawn, was just to pick a day or two out of the 7 days for the Dansoman area so that we could push to the distressed eastern part of Accra. Okay, but the rationing program as it is will not change for the eastern part of Accra and the rest of Accra. It is only Dansoman area where we're going to take just a day or two out of out to the other areas. Now, we also looked at our network and the hydraulics in the system, and we also realized that there are other things that we could do so that if that is done, we wouldn't even need to isolate Dansoman for a day or two. So the only thing for us to do was to put every plan that we have into practice, and we monitor the system, assess the system, and then we'll be able to tell that, look, we need to take this number of days off, or there's no need at all. You understand? So we needed to do this try and error sort of thing within the system, and then we tried to stabilize the system that we informed it. And that was why we did not publish before we issued out the release. But we've had everything drawn on paper. Now, with the meeting at the PURC, we didn't know they were going to demand for all this. They had just invited us for a meeting. And that was why we went without those documents. But we had explained everything to them, that this was what was going to happen. But then I think the media took the whole thing out of context.
Out of context.
And said that we're going to ration water for 6 months. The thing is,
are you rationing for 6 months?
We are already rationing. But the only thing
you're already rationing.
Yes.
Okay, so give us a feel.
So
for the past 8 years.
So what we are just going to do now is to just alter the rationing program. Just alter it. Okay.
So it means that if I understand you clearly, I mean, we've been rationing water supply in this country for God knows how long. And we're just continuing. Like it's the same normal thing for you.
Normal thing, you understand. We're just altering it. We've always made mention that it's very difficult for us to alter the program. But now that you're in crisis, we are forced to.
So it means you've been rationing without informing consumers, really, that you're rationing.
Every consumer within the metropolis is aware that that water do not get to their homes 24/7. It's only a few areas, like I explained initially, that by virtue of their proximity to the treatment plant, they get 24/7.
Let's take Achimota
for
example. I mean, I live in and around Achimota, and for years there've been no water flowing in the taps until there was some redesign or something of a sort. Some new pipes were laid. I don't know. Then we could get water once in a week on a Sunday. I mean, in a neighborhood like that, once in a week.
That is the rationing.
That's serious. You get once in a week water flows through your tap.
I also live.
That's crazy.
I also live in an area we call Teshin, the holy village called Teshin, and Teshin is categorized into 5 zones. So each zone gets water once in a week. Now, when we announce to the general public, we will say that Teshin gets water 5 days in a week, but in effect, it's been categorized into 5 zones, and each zone gets once in a day. So we have been advocating, we have been educating the general public that let us practice water storage. So whilst water is flowing in your homes, you store enough till the following time that you get water again. So I get water only on Saturdays, and I store enough water to take me throughout the week till the following Saturday. Now there are other areas in Accra that get water 4 days in a week, 3 days in a week. So averagely, every area in Accra, or averagely, water goes to every home 4 days in a week. Okay. And we have been managing this for a very long time. Now with the Achimota area, we had some funds to expand a pond treatment plant, and we had laid some pipelines from the Weja treatment plant into our reservoir in Oponglo. Now Oponglo is fed from our treatment plant in Pong, so we had called it the East-West interconnection. So the east is from Pong, the west from Weja, and they both converge in a huge reservoir in Oponglo. So we have enough water to supply to the northeastern part of Accra, which includes Achimota, Dome, Taifa, Medina, Denta, Hachu, Ogboba areas, and then also to Cantonment, Laboni, the central part of Accra. Okay, so that is how we feed the central and the northeastern part of Accra. Okay, from the east-west interconnection. So when that was done, that was when Achimota started receiving some water. Now what we are saying is that after the new treatment plant being constructed in Bong is completed, we are going to lay new lines through Dodowa, through Medina, Denta, Shaleboche area into this same Oponglo, another reservoir being built there. Okay, so we're going to have more water in that reservoir. But whilst the water is flowing through these areas, there will be connections into the various communities. And because it's along that area, they're going to have very high pressures. Now, there's also a very huge reservoir being built in one village after Dodowa, I've forgotten the name, but it's around Dodowa. So the water will be treated from Bong and sent into this reservoir, and then it will be distributed from there. We also have one project we call the Atma Rurals, which also send water along the rural areas from Bong to the state.
So these projects, since when did you start working on these projects? I mean, we want to put a time frame.
Yeah, some have been 2 years, some have been 3 years, and some even a year. Okay, most of them are new projects, and they are nearing completion. So within the next year or two, we should see massive improvement.
Next year or two? That's an uncertain statement.
No, when I say a year or two, a year will be for this Bong China Jesuba project. Now, 2 years, we're going to have, let's say, this desalination plant from Teshin, this interconnection from Kwenyako. The Kwenyako one is even completed. But then this interconnection from Isawam through Pokwasi area and all that. And all of them are in advanced stage of completion. And in a very few, no matter of 2-3 years, it should be done.
Right, you're watching PM Express. My name is Stephen Enti, and I have Stanley Mate, who is the communications manager of Ghana Water Company. We're still expecting Nanaya Jantua, the public relations officer for the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, to also join us in the discussion. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we will talk about money. How much is it going to cost to fix these faulty filters, and how much is it costing the Ghana Water Company to get water to you? Will there be any cost implications? Are you expecting to pay more? We'll talk about all of these when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express, and we're talking about water, troubled water challenges and solutions. So welcome back to the discussion, Stanley. So tell us how much it's going to cost to fix these faulty filters in the first place.
Yes, Steve, I wish I could do that immediately, but unfortunately, no. No, because the original contractors who built the treatment plant have not been invited to assess the situation. Because since the project was completed, we've had this structural defects occur 2-3 occasions.
So sorry, this is a new plant?
So yes, it's a new plant,
It's a new plant,
just
okay.
about some 10 years old.
Okay.
And you know the lifespan for a treatment plant is supposed to be 50 years more.
Yeah.
So if within 10 years we've had 3 occurrences of structural
damages.
defects, then we felt that we should rather get on to other experts who will have a redesign of the filters and reconstruct the filters. So what we've done is we've invited 5 local foreign experts to have a look at the filters, assess it, and come out with a redesign and a proposal. Okay, a proposal so that we will select the best bid for the project. So we are envisaging that this should take 3 weeks. 1 week is already gone, so we have 2 weeks, and we know that almost all of them have already been to site to have a look at the situation. So our expectation is that they are going to get back to us in less than the period that we have given them. Now, when that is done, we'll need between 2 and 3 weeks to evaluate the process, evaluate the proposals, and then we'll select the best bid. Now, the evaluation will be based on your design and your cost estimates. So when that is completed, then we'll have to source for funds and then to award the contract. Now, I'm unable to mention any cost now because the contractors haven't submitted their proposals yet, and we haven't evaluated to do
So
this.
then it means
Yes.
that
Now,
yeah,
one of the things that makes it difficult also for us to mention cost now is the fact that they need to test all the civil works that has already been done, so that if they are strong enough to withstand the test of time, then we may not need to break down the whole thing. Now, if there's a test to indicate that the structure or the civil works is not too strong enough to withstand the test of time, then it means that more areas will have to be demolished and reconstructed. Okay, that will mean more cost. So we are unable to mention anything now. But when that is done, we'll come out again and inform the general public that this is the situation.
So you talked about sourcing funding. If you determine all these and you're able now as a service provider to know how much is in this to spend, where are you going to get the money from?
The water company is creditworthy, don't you think so?
Well, you tell me, because I think that you've had problems
so
also
many
in
ways.
collecting
Yes,
tariffs.
There's so many ways to which we source our funds. Now, this is a critical situation, and I think that it wouldn't be a difficult problem for us to source funds. The government may support us. We may be able to make some money from our own coffers, or we may be able to even go for either a commercial loan, or maybe even a donor could support us. But the thing is, we need to know what we need to know the extent of damage. We need to know the new designs. We need to know a whole lot, and then based on that, we can do our work.
So tell me, I mean, how do you rate your own performance in the provision of water in this country, really, on a scale of 1 to 10? Where do you place yourself?
On a scale of 1 to 10, it's difficult to tell, because depending on where you stand, you may award a higher grade or a lower grade. Okay, now for me, as an insider, knowing the efforts to which we put into the production of water for our people, I'll grade ourselves very high.
10,
and
maybe 9.
And I will compare, I wouldn't even compare ourselves to, let's say, any African country, but I would prefer to compare ourselves to developed countries, and then to say that we are doing very, very well. Now, in order to assess performance too, we may also have to look at the quality of the product. We may have to look at several factors. Now, when we look at the quality of the product, we are able to meet the Ghana Standards Board standards, which is even higher than the WHO standards. Okay, and we are able to do better. So when you want to assess me based on the product quality, then you rate me very, very high. Now, if you live on the periphery of Accra, where you do not have water, the only thing you say is that the water company is not performing. But then I'll ask a question. Before you put up your structure, did you have any consultation with the town and country planning to know the development plans for your area? How many Ghanaians do that? Now, in Ghana, we realize that people, if you see red marks on buildings, stop work, and people still continue to do it. Remove by this date, and people still connect. This thing.
What has that got to do with you supplying water
I want to talk about the indiscipline in the system. Now, the hydraulics in our distribution network is such that when you live within, or when you live, let's say, beyond a certain distance, the water will not flow, no matter how the pressures are. So you can't just put up your structure anyhow and expect that water is basic, and so the moment you call on the water company, they should supply you with water. No, it doesn't work like that. So it's very difficult for us to rate now. But if, for instance, we give the parameters for rating, then we'll be able to do it effectively. And that is why I'm not able to say anything now. But come out with the parameters, and then I'll be able to rate ourselves very well.
Right, so let's talk about distribution. How do you rate yourself when it comes to distribution of water? Now,
when you go to statistical department, they will tell you that the rate of growth in Accra is, let's say, 2.5%, or they're expecting 2.5% growth. But as the years go by, you realize that the growth is even more than the 2.5%. Okay, it means that migration is, has an impact now. So that the three sources that we have for supplying water to the metropolis is supposed to serve a certain population. Now, we have gone beyond that population. You understand? Meanwhile, we have development plans. So it means the population is is growing faster than development plans. Do you blame the Ghana Water Company for it? Now, we are not patriotic enough. We are not responsible enough in paying our bills. Now, you don't pay your bills. How do you expect us to make funds to invest into the system? Everything we do is about reinvesting back into the system. Now, if you go elsewhere, other foreign countries where we want to compare ourselves with, people are not chased to pay their bills. They know that it's their responsibility to do it, and they do it. Why do we want to be chased before we do it? Today, I said on one radio station that people would prefer to pay bribes in order not to go to court. Why don't you use those bribes in paying the bills, but you wait till you are arrested and you want to pay a bribe and not go to court and not to be prosecuted? Why do you have to do that? So there's a lot of indiscipline in the system, and we need to reorient ourselves. We need to change our attitude towards some of these things and be responsible enough to.
So if I get it from what you're saying, it means you have difficulty in collecting payments of.
When we talk about non-revenue water, it doesn't mean that the water is going to waste, or we have physical losses and we have commercial losses. the commercial losses far outweighs the physical losses. Okay, so most people are consuming the water and not paying. And the sad aspect is that most people wake up in the night and steal water. They
but most
do
people
illegal
also are
connections.
not receiving bills.
When you are not receiving bill, the assumption is that you are not getting water. Now, I wouldn't portray a perfect situation within the water company, but when we are responsible enough, when we are patriotic enough, when we know that we need to support our institutions, when you are not receiving bills, the only thing is to report to the nearest office, and it will be rectified. Okay, it could be some technical challenges, so it will be rectified. But why would you wait and say that if I'm not being billed, let me just consume it without paying? And that is the sad aspect of our society. We need to change our attitude.
We need to change our attitudes. And I'm told that we have on the phone Dr. Steve Mantea, who is campaign coordinator for the Integrated Social Development Center, ISODEC. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on PM Express Corporate Wednesday.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my perspectives on the issue and the discussion.
Right. So you've heard, I wonder if you joined the discussion earlier, but you've heard the Ghana Water Company tell us about plans they have to expand their facilities to make water distribution much better, although there is there have been an ongoing rationing for the past 8 years. Now, how big a setback is this situation to Ghana meeting urban water supply targets? I mean, he told us that our supply targets is deficit by about 16 million gallons a day. How big a setback is this?
Well, it is a major one. And I think as a country, we've been going around in circles when we know what the problem is. Way back in the 1990s, there was a study that was commissioned to identify the challenges to urban water supply, and the study actually recommended huge investments in the water sector. Like I heard the panelist in the studio say, I'm not too sure if it's in the studio, we haven't really invested in a way that enables us to expand the infrastructure that's the water infrastructure to catch up with the growth in population size and also the state of urbanization. And so we have a number of newly developing areas that are unserved, and when connected to the existing infrastructure, then you are likely to have a decline in pressure because of the numbers that are connected to a system that is overloaded. And so one would have expected that we will, at the turn of the millennium, address the investment challenge, but rather we went along with the World Bank's prescription to rather provide a management solution to what is primarily an investment problem. So we brought in the Aqua Vitens Run, and we made a point at the time that, look, the management contract arrangement was not going to resolve the problem. And indeed, by the time the contract came to an end, we were where we started. We are having money to provide water supply to all the unserved areas, and we'll continue until, as a country, we make the right investments, because the infrastructure is weak in many places. They haven't seen any overhaul for decades, and we need to address this as a fundamental problem before we can look at how the water that is produced is managed in itself.
Let's talk about tariffs. It does appear that tariffs and services have become more like a chicken-egg puzzle. Which one should come first? Increase tariffs or increase productivity to be sure that we get more services?
From where we will need as a country to take a decision to find the money and invest in the infrastructure. You see, it is when you improve services that people are comfortable paying the economic tariffs that the water company demands. But you see, when the services is so bad, then definitely you're going to meet some resistance in paying economic rates. Why do you expect me to pay that much high tariffs when I don't receive regular supply of water? And that is the problem.
Yeah,
so indeed, it's a chicken and egg situation, but we as a country, the state must finance the expansion program through the state budget. And then we can charge the water company to either recover that cost, that investment cost, over time, through maybe certain adjustments in tariffs.
But wouldn't
even
you,
in doing that, we need to be mindful of the fact that water is a basic right that cannot be subjected to the, market rules. And therefore, we need to make provision, create some safety nets to take care of the underprivileged in society who may not be able to afford. So they are not deprived access to water on the basis of cost.
But what would you say has been the problem for which the state has been unable to pump in money into the infrastructural development of the Ghana Water Company for years? I mean, the problem didn't start yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's basically a problem of misplaced priority. We do not seem to prioritize the water sector as a country. Because for me, it is really quite strange that we do have a road fund, and yet we do not have a fund for the water sector. So we prioritize even roads over water, and that is what has led us to where we are today.
And so moving on,
we need to be very innovative, find ingenious ways of raising the finance to actually improve upon the infrastructure that is delivering water to our homes. That means that we need to create a kind of a fund similar to the road fund, find innovative ways of raising some tax revenue that it goes into that fund and goes exclusively to deal with the infrastructure challenges in the water sector.
What about attitudes, Dr. Mantial? What about national attitudes? People consume, they don't pay. What about that?
Well, when you say people use water and they don't pay, I would want to have further details in terms of that statement, because there are those sections of our society who can just not afford. If you look at the poorer areas, urban areas that we have in this country, you find that the percentage of income that most of the urban poor spend on water is about 60-70% of their income. So there is an opportunity cost, and there are many communities where you go, and you find people sacrificing their children's education for water. So we need to take care of the fact that most of the people who cannot afford and pay are those who are not paying are those who cannot afford. So that's why I'm saying that there's a need for us to provide that safety net to take care of those people. Another way of addressing the problem would be, because whereas many areas do not have water, there are some areas that have access to regular supply of water to the extent that they use treated water to water their lawns, to wash their cars. Now, in situations like this, you want to actually introduce something like a cross-subsidization. Those who live in affluent areas pay higher tariffs to cross-finance those who live in poorer areas. That's another way to go. I think the debate must continue, and we need to find innovative ways of addressing the financing challenge for the urban sector, water sector.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen Mantial is campaign coordinator for ISODEC. My name is Stephen Anti, and I'm having a chat with Stanley Marte, Communications Manager, Ghana Water Company Limited. We'll take a snappy break, and when we return, he will react to some of the issues that were raised by Dr. Mantial. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express, and you can join us by text 1760 or post your Facebook comments on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/joynews on TV. We're also on Twitter, so you can send us a tweet at Joy News on TV. I've got a couple of messages that are coming in. Alukus from Tamale says, water is one of the basic necessities of life. Its shortage is therefore a recipe for suicide. The Ghana Water Company Limited must wake up to their responsibilities. If not, heads will roll. And Tommy didn't say where he's sending this from, but Tommy says there is no water also in Sekondi. Well, so this is from Tommy from Sekondi. And Kansek Paul in Suhum says, Stephen, I want Stanley to tell me the duty of Ghana Water Company Limited. And Lawrence Ra says that we in Ashongman Estate do not get water at all. But anytime we talk about programs on water, no mention is made of us. When are we going to get water? From which treatment plant? I want to know. Lawrence wants to know whether Ashongman has been planned for really in the re-engineering or supply situation in the capital.
Yeah, with the new project at Bong, when that is completed, like
Ashongman should have water.
Ashongman should have water, because then because it's going to go through Dodo Adenta area to Medina to Teshin, areas along Ashongman, Agbogba, Hacho, all those areas should have water.
Will be catered for. What about those in Second D?
Second D has a peculiar situation. We have challenges with the Galamsey operations. So the two sources where we supply Second D Takoradi water is challenged with this Galamsey stuff. The raw water is so polluted, seriously polluted, that it's making the cost of production so high. It's giving as frequent breakdowns of our equipment, and then power outages is also another problem. So it's making it a bit difficult for us to meet the demand in Second D Takoradi. But because of the oil find now, there are a lot of investments into that area, and there are a lot of investors who also want to invest into the system. So there are also some programs in place so that we could have additional treatment plants built to meet the demand in the Second D Takoradi metropolis.
Right. So these ones, you didn't add your names to these messages. This one said, not only in Accra, we have some parts of Tamale not had water for about 2 months. Instead of us to be mindful of this, we are rather focusing on political party politics. Good program. I want to know the last day that water passed through the taps of Ashongman Estate. Thank you. You didn't add your name. And Mr. Mate, somebody says that you've confessed that you've been rationing water all this while. I wonder whether that qualifies as a confession. He just made a statement that because we have a deficit of about 16 million gallons a day, it's normal. It has been normal to ration water over the past 8 years. And then this one from Charles Apollo in Takoradi says, I've realized that any time Accra is hit by water shortages, is an issue for discussion on many of the media platforms. What about other regions, especially Western region, where 70% of Ghana's revenue is generated from? Please note that the best is in the West. I'm not sure that 70% of Ghana's revenue is generated from the West, but really, yes. The problem in the Western region, this person, Charles, thinks that when we have issues in Accra, we're able to put it out in the public domain, discuss, and then there is a solution. And the other regions don't get to have a solution when they have a problem.
I don't really think so, because like we say, water is life. And for us in the water industry or the water company, we do not take things for granted. So every region is given the prominence that is due them. Quite recently, the Western region was in the news, and especially from Joy FM, where these Galamsey operations became very topical, and we discussed this extensively. Now in the Western region, we have the Ntraban treatment plant, and we have the Daboase treatment plant. And Ntraban treatment plant serves Second D area. The challenge with that is that during the dry season, the raw water dries up, so we are unable to even abstract the water for production. Now there's a project ongoing to raise the dam so that we can store more, raise the dam and to dredge so we can store more raw water against the dry season. Now, the other source is the Daboase treatment plant that supplies Takoradi, and there's interconnectivity as well. Now, the Daboase one is faced with the high pollution from the Galamsey operations, and it's really a terrible situation. We are calling on everybody to support, especially people, especially the citizens themselves, Because if they do not get involved, if all hands are not put on deck, it will be very difficult for us to fight the menace. So that is a challenge. If you look at the Tarkwa area, we have some other treatment plants in that serves the Tarkwa area. They are all challenged with galamsey operations, and it's a terrible situation.
It's a big deal for you. So
yes,
what programs are you putting in place to be sure? I mean, you are the ones who are responsible for managing your own facilities. Yeah. So if you are under threat from illegal operations of other people's activities, you should be putting in place the solution.
Steve, the best solution is discipline. I'm telling you. If we all understand that, look, a few people cannot benefit to the detriment of a whole society, these things wouldn't happen. The galamsey operations is only benefiting just a few people, and the whole region is suffering.
It's suffering.
Okay, so we just need to discipline ourselves just a little discipline, and we'll be done.
Wow, so discipline will solve the problem. If everyone disciplines themselves, you're hopeful of a solution in the Western region galamsey crisis, which is affecting.
We shouldn't be chasing people with guns, with military, for them to do what
stop polluting our water sources.
Why should that be done?
Well, Sami says that, please, I want to know from Mr. Mate why they are waiting to finish installing the new plant before laying the pipelines. Can they do both at the same time?
Yes, that is what is being done. And people who live along that area or who drive along that area will realize that there are huge pipelines in that area which are being laid. And it's a continuous thing. As I'm speaking with you, the project is still ongoing. So it is being done simultaneously. Now, even within the communities where we do not have extensions and all that, we still have programs. Some are in the process, and some may fall into the budget of next year to have it done. It's also got to do with funding. It's capital intensive.
Let's use the last 2
minutes. But we're also urging people within their communities that if you do not have extension mains now, and because of our expectation in water, in the volumes of water that's yet to come, please go to the nearest district office. Let them then just inform them. You can just form yourself, just put yourself into an association. Come along, support the water company, and we'll have the extensions done for you.
Right. Let's react quickly to Dr. Mantiao's some of his comments that we need to as a country, find innovative ways of funding infrastructural improvements when it comes to water, and we need to prioritize and make water more important in the scheme of things. What's your reaction to that?
I think he hit the nail right on the head, and I know that this talk task, okay, was one of the innovations of the water company. Unfortunately, when it materialized, it wasn't given to the water sector. So we are still looking at such innovative ways, and we expect input from the general public.
Right, Mr. Stanley Mate, it's great having you here. Stanley Mate is Communications Manager at the Ghana Water Company Limited. We were expecting Nanaya Jantoa, who is a Public Relations Officer for the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Unfortunately, she didn't turn up, and we were unable to reach her by phone. And we're grateful to Dr. Stephen Mantiao, campaign coordinator of ISODEC, who joined us on phone. And thanks to you for your comments and your text messages. Join us again tomorrow for another engaging edition of PM Express. Good night.